Hello and welcome to the Marketing Times Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Safranis, and today we're on with Dan Chuparkoff. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. I'm Dan Chuparkoff. I have been a technology leader for about 30 years at places like Google and McKinsey and Atlassian. And recently, I've decided to become a keynote speaker and an author. I'm working on a book, and I help people navigate this AI transformation that we're in the middle of.
So, you're very much a thought leader. I'm curious, when you started in your career, what was your initial sort of career plan and how did that end up materializing?
Yeah, my original career plan was to become an architect. I took some drafting classes in high school, and that seemed interesting to me. And so I started trying to figure out what becoming an architect would look like. Along that road, I discovered computer design. It was very early in the field. Almost no architects were using AutoCAD at the time. I saw it, and it just instantly looked like it would scale the ability to get work done, do more drawings from more different angles. I saw the value that computing was going to bring to that industry and decided I wanted to change my major to computer science and make more software like AutoCAD in 1986. So here I am.
And then, so you went into these big companies. At what point did you decide I want to make the transition to speaking and teaching?
Yeah, I think ever since the very beginning of my career, when my first corporate job was at a marketing services company in Detroit, Michigan. And when I started in early 1993, we didn't have computers yet. We didn't have PCs. We had mainframes connected to some terminal in the basement. In 1995, we got our first shipment of PCs, and we got 9 of them. We put them on all our desks, but there was no network yet. They couldn't talk to each other. We didn't have software. We could save some files on these things, but we couldn't find those files again. We didn't know where they went. But that was a fun problem for me to solve. So I dug into the PC and I figured out how it worked. And then I helped my team figure it out around me. That wasn't my job. I wasn't in IT. I just had a normal office processing job like the others. I realized I had a skill at helping people adapt to new technology. And after we figured PCs out, then we got the web, and then we got mobile phones, and then we got cloud, and then we got data science, and then we got remote work. And all of these were just transformations that helped us change the way we did work. And I just was really good at that. And so even though I had some other job that whole time, the thing I was most passionate about was helping my team figure out how to embrace this new technology. I was only doing that with one team at a time, and I wanted to do that with hundreds of teams. And so I started speaking on the side and eventually got to the place that became my full-time thing.
That's interesting. And so, is that what you speak about when, like, what are the typical things that you'll speak about?
Yeah, right now everybody's trying to figure out what AI is going to mean for the way we do work. So right now the transition that we're all going through is an AI one, but my portfolio of help is really about adapting to change in general. It's about how do you learn new things? How do you make decisions as a diverse, scattered team? How do you figure out what AI can really do? Is it going to displace us as people doing work, or is it just a tool that we will use that makes us smarter and faster? That's how I help people right now. But 5 years from now, we're going to start getting robots that wander around and help do work on our teams too. And so the same talk I'm giving now will apply just as much to AI.
So, can you walk us through your vision of AI in the next 10 to 20 years?
Yeah. So 10 to 20 is hard. Like 20 years is super far away. In the next 5 to 10 years, it will be as connected to our lives and the way we do work as our mobile phone is. We will have more conversations with our AI assistant constantly throughout the day. We'll talk to them about the projects we're working on, about the emails that we need to send. Our AI will be like our assistant. It will get our emails first and tell us what we need to care about and what we don't. We'll tell it about the strategy we're thinking about for our new organization next year, and it will help us make that strategy better before we roll it out to our teams. It will take notes in all our discussions, and it will keep track of the decisions that we made and the action items that we got assigned. It will just be a completely connected assistant that follows us around every day.
Hmm.
knows all the things we're doing, and helps us do all those things.
So you're seeing it as an assistant, not as a replacement.
I emphatically believe that you should never let AI make the decisions. AI will help curate the information you need to make the decisions, but it's actually really bad at making decisions because it doesn't know what you want. AI can give you 1,000 recipes for dinner, but it doesn't know what you want for dinner. And you could get really good at prompt engineering, but you have trillions of synapses in your head with context. You can't get good enough at prompt engineering to tell AI all the things you wish were true about the world. Yeah, so it will help make you faster. It'll help you scale. It'll help you talk to people that don't speak your language, but it doesn't know things that you wish about the world.
What about cars and the autonomous driving?
So what AI can do is make commodity level decisions, right? The kind of decisions that get made over and over again, millions of times in a consistent way. But when challenges are slightly unique, when there's something slightly weird about that new problem in such a way that didn't exist in the training data, AI will have a really hard time solving that problem. That's why I have a self-driving car. I use my Tesla and it drives me around most of the time. But I don't actually believe we will have fully self-driving cars ever. Just like we don't have websites that stay up 100% of the time. And we won't ever. 0.001%. And watching in the background, there's somebody looking at our websites for that 0.001%. And when that website crashes, they jump in, they fix the problem, they figure out why it crashed, they fix it, get it back and running as soon as possible. So I think in a world where we have self-driving cars, there will be a data center with self-driving car problem solving people watching 25 cars each or 100 cars each and looking at Splunk dashboards for the issues that they need to intervene and solve. And they'll pilot our cars remotely in a snowstorm or around some construction cones. And cars will be able to do all of the normal stuff in an automated way, but they'll need some help sometimes. They'll get stuck. Just like
Hmm.
the scanner at the airport sometimes sees a new GoPro camera in your suitcase that it's never seen before, and it's not sure what to do. So the TSA person opens the suitcase and figures out what to do. That's how I think AI will work in the world as well.
That's interesting. So you would agree that any parts of marketing that are repetitive can be automated with AI.
So it's not a decision. If you made the decision already manually a long time ago and now you're just remaking that decision, that's a process. And process automation is great. AI will be able to help us automate processes in a way that the former process automation stuff was very algorithmic and formulaic, rule based. AI now will look at patterns from the people that have made those decisions and it'll remake those decisions. But when something weird new happens, someone somewhere needs to be there to notice that happened. And we will build anomaly detectors, right? So that you don't have to look at every single email that goes out or every single social post that goes out. We'll have an anomaly detection thing that says, this is about to go out, but it looks a little weird. I think somebody should look at this before it goes. That's how software development, lint or pre-release software code quality tests happen. That same stuff will exist with AI.
And is the reason why AI shouldn't be making decisions one of technical capability or moral responsibility?
There's certainly some moral responsibility wrapped up in this. But first, the fundamental limitation is we are, when we do work, we're trying to build the future version of the world. We're trying to reach new customers with new thoughts. We're telling them new things about the product that we just made or the services that we are rolling out to our new customers. We're broadening our customer base. We're making decisions with an increasingly diverse amount of people involved in those decisions. And none of those things were in the training data. The AI knows the way the world was, but we all do work based on the way we hope the world will be, and hope the world will be is not part of the training data. And AI will make decisions, and as long as you don't need those decisions to be better than in the past, then AI will do a great job. But if you want a less biased world, a more diverse world, a more equitable world, AI can't know those things because it learns from the last 25 years of logged information about and little by little, those things will get better and better. But it's got a long way to go before it can look at training data and filter out the things that are broken that we don't want like that anymore.
You're talking about reasoning capability.
There was an interesting paper from Apple about what Apple believes the AI reasoning agents are doing is emulating reasoning, right? They're not actually reasoning, they're just finding examples of reasoning in the training data and trying to use that as a pattern that it re-implements. The analogy that I use there is imagine you have an AI powered robot that's walking around a factory and making sure everything's going fine, right? It's a quality assurance robot, a safety robot, whatever its job is. And it notices that somebody slips and falls on the floor. And so it looks at its training data and discovers that, oh, like 99% of the time when people slip on the floor, it's because the floor was wet. And so your AI powered robot's going to grab a mop and it's going to mop the floor up, whether the floor was wet or not. The wet floor is such a likely solution to the slipping problem. Assume that's the answer. But that's not actually problem solving. That's just like emulating a commodity solution that it's seen millions of times in the past. And that's how a lot of reasoning kinds of things, I think, are going to exist in the training data. It's going to emulate intelligence. Even if it's emulating intelligence very well, there's still a lot of context in your head that's not in the algorithms, that's not posted on blog pages and web pages. And none of that is how you make decisions. That's how you reason. Until we have a way of capturing all of that other context and adding that to the training data too, then I think AI has a fundamental training data limitation.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It makes sense that there are going to be limitations to how AI can implement reasoning and some dangers too. There's a lot of assumptions that may be wrong about how the world currently works, and the AI will perpetuate it without understanding. That's not the direction that humanity wants to go. I guess there's a natural counter argument that who's to decide? Who's to decide that the future should be more equitable and therefore the AI is wrong? Or the reverse, who's to decide that the future should not be more equitable and that the AI should not be built with that in mind? I think these things are very important because what we're creating is a hive mind, as a sort of singular thinking system that would govern a lot of different processes. And I think it's important to explore who decides what that singular thinking system thinks.
So first, it doesn't think, it's a database. And you can look stuff up in that database anytime you want. It doesn't make decisions, it gives you recommendations, and you can choose to act on it or not. You could also choose to let the AI connect to some process that continues to function without you. That's right. I don't believe it's a hive mind, but it is a hive database that all of us look stuff up in anytime we want. That's why I believe that the decision making should always be owned by fundamental people, because we will all have different decisions that we would make about the world. And those decisions are ours to make. AI will help put information in front of your fingertips that will help you make that decision with more information at your disposal. But you're right. If we just unleash AI and let it make all the decisions in its current architecture, it's going to replicate decisions that it's seen lots of times in the past. And there are things about our past that some people think might need to be corrected, like bias. Right. Now, whether you agree or don't agree, I don't think AI should care, right? Because you shouldn't let AI make those decisions. It's just telling you the things that it's found so that you
Hmm.
can make the decision more quickly.
Yeah. I like that. Do you think it's realistic to prevent AI from making those bigger decisions?
AI doesn't have any fingers, so only people can connect processes to AI, implement those things. And some people will do that, right? Some people either will ignore my advice or they won't hear it. And they'll connect it to systems that do stuff that's propagating bias or accidentally driving toward a goal without considering the other accidental side effects of pursuing that goal. The more we just connect systems to AI and let them run without human oversight, the higher that risk will be. I think that's a mistake. Most people that have connected customer service bots directly to AI have been disappointed in the quality of the responses consistently. That's just the first of those examples, right? AI will be really good at talking to your customers to start collecting some of the information about what the issue is. When AI is answering all the questions or talking to your customers without you in the loop, it can automate the easy things, but when it runs into the hard things, it's going to provide an average answer instead of a great answer. I
Yeah, I like that you brought it back to marketing, and I'd like to do that. So, when we're thinking about, let's say we have an AI targeting model, or more accurately, an ML targeting model
mm-hmm.
that looks for customers for, we're selling a widget, it's looking for customers that are most likely to buy the widget. Is there any danger there with letting it decide who is exposed to the ad?
I don't think so. I think ads is a relatively benign thing in the world. Like maybe as it starts crawling and delivering more ads more efficiently, maybe the ad percentage goes up, and we find that challenging or irritating. But fundamentally, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think getting higher quality ads to higher quality targeted potential customers is great. And I think as long as you have ways of run that in a phased process, right? First, I would use AI to look at all of your current existing data and say, hey, AI, can you help me understand my targeted customers better? Who are the customer segments in here at all? And which of those customer segments is worth my time and money the most, right? AI will be able to do that, and that will be great. I would curate that list when it comes back, right? I would say, okay, this is great, but you forgot to target Native Americans. I want Native Americans to know about this product too. Then you might fix it. And then you would say, okay, now these are the targeted priority customers that I want. What's the best way to reach those people with the right content for personalization? And then it unleashes and it targets all those people. And then after that phase happens, I would look at the results and see how it's going. And you constantly treat this as a partner, right? I think AI is an assistant, not an automator. And I think when people think about it as an automator, the snowball can start rolling down the hill really quickly. And it's unnecessary to do that. You still have a person driving the marketing strategy. And so if they stop at various checkpoints, there's no danger in pausing and reviewing what's going on.
I've heard the idea floated of AI president. You probably are against that.
I think first you could argue what the role of the president actually is. Does the president's advisors really do the work? Is the president the communicator or the face? We could debate those things. If your definition of what the president does is they're the person making the decisions about the fate of the country and the relations with country, yeah, I don't think a person should do that. I wouldn't even have an AI president of a company, let alone a country.
I think that's where I would draw the line is when we give AI the power to control our lives rather than to enhance them.
Let's talk about the president of a company for a second.
Sure.
Let's say we had some large financial services firm or some large, whatever, auto industry firm, and it had an AI president. I think it would optimize for some set of goals that we told it in the prompt or in its training. Maybe we spent a really good amount of time giving it the 700 goals that are important to this organization. Now I compare that to an actual president that's driving this, having worked in that industry for 35 years. That person also has some goals in their head. I bet it's not 6 or 700. I bet it's 6 or 7,000 or 60 or 70,000. There's so many little things that help drive the decision making. And I think that an AI president of an organization would accidentally have too few goals that it's optimizing for. And it will forget about some of the other things that were low priority, but sometimes, in some cases, impactful.
Mm.
The president, on the other hand, will be making his decisions from life experience with an undiverse amount of thoughts in his head. And so he's failing in other ways, or she is failing in other ways because they don't have enough information to make all the right decisions at scale. So the ideal state is to have a president with an AI decision maker, or an AI assistant, right? And those two are working together, and the AI is saying, these are the 600 bits of information that are important here. This is my recommendation for the decision, or these are my top 3 candidates for the decision that should be made. That partnership between the AI assistant and the real president, with all their life experience and all synapses in our head, will probably make better decisions as a partnership. The Deep Blue and Gary Kasparov chess saga that's played out over the last 25 years seems to illustrate that the human and machine partnership is usually superior.
And I'm not too familiar with it. Can you give us a little overview of that Kasparov story?
Yeah. This goes back to IBM had a computer project which they called Deep Blue, and they taught their computer system to play chess. They played the greatest chess master in the world at the time. I think this was 1996. IBM's Deep Blue computer played Gary Kasparov in chess, and Gary Kasparov lost. And so IBM, the whole technology world, declared, right, computers the winner, the more intelligent beings playing a complex thing like chess. Gary Kasparov immediately challenged to a rematch, and then in the second game, he lost again. But then they started to do this a little bit more. They went back to the drawing board. Gary Kasparov and other chess people started playing again. They figured out how the computer system was making decisions, and they played and they beat. Then the chess tournament people created what they called freestyle tournament, where a person could play against computers, or 2 people could play against each other, or a person could partner with a computer and play another computer or another person. In every single case, the person with the computer partner versus somebody who is just a computer or somebody who is just a person. And we've seen other variations of that dynamic play out. I think we have a partnership world where it's advantageous for us as decision makers to use AI assistants to help us scale the information that we use to make our decisions.
Yeah. I really like that. And I hope that is how it ends up being. That there's a true partnership and no full replacement. And I think that's going to be really tricky because, like you said, we are at extreme risk if we give AI too few restrictions.
Right.
There's that classic example that Elon Musk says, if you ask AI what's worse, like killing everyone on Earth or misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, it says misgendering is worse because it doesn't have that reasoning. It doesn't know. And so we need that human being that can push back and say, oh, you know what? We might have forgotten to include that valuable context. So before we push that button, take a pause. Will we ever reach that point where AI can make the decisions where they'll have, let's say, instead of 600 variables, and the CEO has 60,000 variables, they're thinking about is there a world where the AI has 6 million variables and it can actually do it better than the person?
Yeah, I think the key threshold that would for sure make that possible is if we had neural implants, right? If his Neuralink became deployed at scale across a diverse group of people with differing thoughts, then we start to get training data that's built on a more complex and comprehensive data set. I think the problem we have right now is we're training these algorithms with news articles that are biased toward one extreme or the other because that's what gets views, or books and blog posts that have a little bit of extra polish to them, marketing and sales, or books that have gone through publisher houses and stuff like that. That's the information that these things have been trained on. And that's just a tiny kind of information we all think about the world. And so, if we had other ways of recording all this other stuff that we think, AI's ability to know all the things that we would do, or even more because it's combining multiple brains together, all of those things would help. All of those things would make AI more comprehensive. But I don't know that I believe that we're all going to get neural links, because the world can't even agree that we all want browser cookies looking at our browser history. I don't think we're going to let Elon have our thoughts. And I'm an Elon fan. I've had a Tesla since the very beginning. Will we ever get to the point where AI actually does surpass the human in the decision-making arena? I think that the technological hurdle for AI being able to actually make decisions with all of the context in our head is either we need to get so good at prompt engineering that a prompt is thousands or tens of thousands of words long, or we need Neuralink to start like reading some of our thoughts and putting those thoughts into training data. If we had some sort of implants or some other brain reading devices, then we could improve that training data gap. I think, though, when you look at people's resistance toward things like browser cookies, if people don't even want you to know their browser history, I find it hard to believe that we're going to have our thoughts captured at scale. We might get some people, especially people that are impaired in some way, that neural implants help them get through life. That will help. But the average person electing to just give Elon all their thoughts, I have a hard time imagining a world where that happens at scale.
Yeah, I agree. It would be at most a sampling situation.
Yeah, and probably a skewed sampling in some way, right?
Yeah.
So those things are challenges, but you never know. We're already getting to the point where more and more of us are getting comfortable recording every conversation that we have. If we're recording every discussion we have every single day, we're going to start putting more of our thoughts and our hopes and our dreams into the database. And maybe that surrogates the way to that missing training data that's there right now.
I think that's very profound. AI doesn't know our dreams.
And that's why we think when we talk about bias in AI or even hallucinations, we often say, like, how do we get the bias out? What we're actually saying is, I want a world with less bias in it. Those people are imagining a world with less bias in it. But that world doesn't exist, right? That world isn't in the training data for sure. It's barely in our lives and in our teams and our offices, right? And so that's one of those things where we're imagining this world that's different than the training data. And that's one of the many things that guides our own personal decision making in a way that the AI will have a little bit of a hurdle trying to replicate that stuff.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess final thoughts on AI, and I guess maybe on a positive note, what are you excited about the future of AI?
Yeah, I think there are at least two things, maybe a third, that are super exciting to me. The first is most of us that work on teams, we collaborate with people in offices or even with customers that we're talking to all the time. We spend a really large amount of time in conversations about, and conversations are not really that productive. They're important. I'm not saying conversations should go away, but if we could make them 10% or 20% more efficient, then it would save time for us to do higher level things, higher level thinking, new products, new strategies, services for our customers. I think AI note taking and AI email summaries or document creation, accelerated document creation, those things will help us communicate dramatically more efficiently. And communication is, we're spending a lot of time every week. There's 1 billion hours of time every week spent just in the US in meetings, email, and chat. If we could make that just a little bit better, it's like hiring 10 more people for your team, or 100 more, or 1,000 more, depending on your team size. That's the first thing that's super exciting. The second thing I think that's neat is image recognition combined with the ability to generate code will accelerate the production of robotics that can do general purpose things. And general purpose things like delivering our package from Amazon.com in the middle of the night, or cooking food at restaurants that will become cheaper because the restaurant work is super laborious and only a tiny bit of it is the customer service kind that we like. And the robotics at scale, I think, will bring some of the things that we rely on every single day, the services that drive the world. It will make those things easier and cheaper and more frequent. And so I think we'll have robots walking around delivering Amazon packages like in 5 years. I think that's going to come way more quickly than people can imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to and a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities as well. So I hope the listeners are inspired and engaged from this. And there's a lot out there that we have to look forward to. So thank you, Dan. I really appreciate you chatting today. I just want to thank you again, Dan. This is such a great conversation.
Thank you for having me, Alex. It was a pleasure. These are fun topics to talk about. Sometimes there's no easy answers, and sometimes different people in the world are going to disagree, but that's a fun time to be alive because we get to create the new world that we're dreaming of that AI doesn't know about, and that's super exciting.
Thank you, Dan. And thanks, everyone, for listening.